Things are beginning to fall in place for the two major political parties in Nigeria ahead of the next general election in the country. The leaderships of both the ruling All Progressives Congress and the opposition People's Democratic Party have finally got a hold of their respective challenges, setting the parties on new opportunities. In the APC, the Progressive Governors Forum, umbrella body of governors elected on the platform of the party, has reaffirmed its support for the caretaker Extraordinary Convention Committee of the party led by the Yobe State Governor, Mai Malabuni, and asked it to proceed with the conduct of the local government and state congresses, as well as the National Convention of the party, in line with the mandate of the National Executive Committee. However, in the PDP, after two major meetings of the party stakeholders and board of trustees, members, its leadership agreed to allow the Uche Secondo's National Working Committee to continue in office till the next National Convention, which has been brought forward from December to October this year, but with an understanding. Things looks like things are simming down, so it will seem, for the two major political parties in Nigeria.
You think?
Well, fingers crossed.
I don't think so.
The calm before the storm.
I think the drama continues, and I think all of this is 2023, inclined in the thinking. Even Stevens currently, but I don't think things are over yet. It is obvious that some people are hell-bent on getting Uche Secondos out, and they're going to do it either ways. I think it was Seriake Dixon yesterday that was speaking about it has to be done through the right channel, the convention. Oh, the PDP keeps talking about the APC. It's not a party, it's not a soul, no BOT, caretaker committee run and things like that. And they keep referring to that judgment by the Supreme Court, Itaya Jagade and Akeredolu. But when you look at things internally, it is obvious that this faction that wants Secondos out are winning. From December, they've been able to push it forward to October. So the night of long knives will finally happen in October, either way or not. I don't see Secondos keeping his job. I think after October, after that convention, a lot is going to flip. And all of that is in preparedness for 2023. The first thing that happens before any big political cycles, the fight for the soul of the party. And some people are hell-bent on taking the party, taking the initiative, taking it to their side. The APC, calm nerves, but there are still discordant views in the APC. What the governors have come out to say yesterday that, the caretaker committee, Mai Malabuni can continue, go ahead, as they lead up to convention and the likes. But some people are still saying things are not done rightly. So it's just to calm things down. But it's not that everything is all settled. There's a big fight too to the soul of the APC. All of these strategic permutations for 2023. That's what is behind all of this that we're seeing that is happening. In the case of the APC, some are looking strongly at different possibilities and different iterations on how the party will go. Some are saying, yes, Mai Malabuni, let's look at it critically. This arrangement with this caretaker committee, how well is it going to work? Let's just steady the ship now. Let's just call for a ceasefire. But the thing I always say is be wary about ceasefire. I think the drama's just started for me.
Okay.
No, I think in a sense, the drama has ended in one part, particularly for the PDP. What is very clear now is that Uche Secondos, Prince Uche Secondos, would not be allowed to sustain his position as chairman of the People's Democratic Party. All the forces against him have coalesced, and I think what the PDP has been able to do is to save faces, to put a fine face on it. And Prince Uche Secondos, as a party man, will seem to have also, been able to work out a deal. Because if he had been forced to resign, that would have amounted to disgracing him out of office, not out of the party, because he's a very resolute PDP member. And if you look at the trajectory of it, if the PDP manages to win in the future, whatever sacrifice he has made will be compensated by the owners of the party. But what the PDP has done very clearly is to say, okay, yes, there is this opposition, we'll bring it forward. We will set up a committee to organize the next convention, a convention that is supposed to be organized by Prince Uche Secondus and whatever remains of his team. So when they have that convention, it's not likely that he will emerge as a chairman, but certainly he's not going to lose out, whatever may have happened, and he has not been disgraced. So I think within the PDP, wisdom will seem to have prevailed. And all of this, as I said yesterday, is about the calculations for 2023. What is the PDP planning? Is the PDP planning a southern candidate as president? Is it northern forces also trying to arrange things within the PDP? As for the APC, yes, some people have lost out, some people have won. Mela and Buni, getting in there, you recall that the party was divided between persons who said the minority judgment had implications for the party, and those saying the majority judgment in the Ondo governorship case had implications for the party. But it looks that at the end of the day is the group supporting the minority group that has succeeded, that has triumphed. And now they are saying Buni will conduct the next convention, the state and local government congresses within the party. In other words, the party, the governors, because APC does not have a board of trustees. They say, look, we have been properly informed, and in our wisdom, this is the way the party should go. And we are ready to deal with the implications. So Nigerians should ask the question, where would the next presidential candidate in both parties come from? Because this is about the big game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's take another story here in Nigeria, as the army says top Boko Haram commanders have surrendered to its troops in Operation Hadinkai. The army says the recent escalation of offensive operations and non-kinetic efforts by troops of Operation Hadinkai are yielding massive results, which has forced the insurgents to surrender. More than 100 Boko Haram fighters are reported to have surrendered with their families. Musa Adamu, a chief bomb expert for the insurgents, is one of those who surrendered. This is fantastic news. We should commend the troops.
I think we should look at the various dimensions. Is this a publicity stunt by the Nigerian army? The Nigerian army has been talking about kinetic and non-kinetic interventions. And, the spokesperson of the Nigerian army has been proposing this as a triumph for their non-kinetic interventions. But to what effect? Because I don't think that, it has a significant impact in terms of the perception of the Nigerian people or the Nigerian public. Yes, in military measures, from the US to everywhere, you can adopt some methods of engaging the terrorists, of engaging the criminal, but that has been very controversial in terms of how you deal with crime. In other words, what I'm saying is that this idea of giving toiletries, groceries, and jollof rice to over 100, 700, terrorists and their wives and children, over 700 of them, look, is that what will solve the problem? So, justifiably, many Nigerians are concerned, and they are saying that you cannot be attacking IPOB in the southeastern part of the Nigeria. You cannot have Nnamdi Kanu in custody. You cannot be threatening to get Sunday Igboho, expatriated from Benin Republic, and then you'll be giving jollof rice and groceries and toiletries to self-confessed terrorists who are criminals. And then you put them together, they are even carrying placards. Who wrote those placards for them? So this is, insensitive, in my view. It's a way of dividing Nigeria further. It's a way of further strengthening the narrative that in this country, persons from different parts of the country get different systems, get different treatments. And nobody has illustrated this better than Mrs. Oluwaseun Sakaba, the wife of a flight lieutenant, is it flight lieutenant or Lieutenant I. Sakaba, who died in 2018 in a Boko Haram attack. The young lady, who has even had to relocate from the country, went online and said, no. She said, it no go better for all of you in the Nigerian army. And what is her point? Her point is that, look, these Boko Haram people killed my husband. They turned me into a widow. They got me relocated to another country. And you people are giving them jollof rice and groceries. So it doesn't make sense to the average Nigerian. Idris Abdul Karim, who, the author of the song that Nigeria don't jaga jaga, he don't scatter scatter, he also went online and said this is unacceptable. You can't be clamping down on some people, and people who have committed crime. There is no statute of limitation on murder, on crime. Even the chief bomb expert of Boko Haram is said to have been one of those people carrying the placards, and his deputy, Abu Dada and Musa Adamu, they are carrying placards, they are saying Nigerians forgive us. Many Nigerians will not forgive them. And I don't think this is something that the government of Nigeria should be advertising. It's insensitive, it's offensive, and whether they call it non-kinetic or kinetic, no, it doesn't make sense. They should focus on the kinetic. When people commit crime, bomb Nigeria, compromise the integrity and sovereignty of Nigeria, they should be punished because there is no statute of limitation. There is nowhere in the criminal code that we are told that criminals should be offered a jollof rice and rehabilitation. Who is going to rehabilitate members of IPOP or members of Sunday Igboho's team?
Well, I'm told we have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much. And that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus Odiri, Michael Wilson, Aaron Akrejola, and myself to give updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, as well as sporting activities from across the globe. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Rotus, we'll go quickly to you this morning. How are you, my friend?
Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Adesua. Good morning to all our viewers. We're talking debts. Two stories on debts. One of them is false. The other one's factual. We'll start with the false one first. AMCON, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, the head of corporate communications has come out to rubbish the rumors that they are set to take over the Dangote Refinery. I believe you had a guest yesterday on the morning show, which the doctor was hilariously asking the guest whether he got his news from WhatsApp. Yesterday, I watched that interview where they're going back and forth, where doctor made it clear that there wasn't any evidence of such, that the Dangote Refinery was going to be taken over by AMCON due to debts to excess of $7 billion or so owed to commercial banks. So the AMCON now has put out a statement from his head of corporate communications, Mr. Nwazo, who said that it's not true. Dangote Refinery is not on its list. Also, the Dangote Group has come out to dismiss those rumors as well. However, it must be said, why would these rumors pop up out of nowhere? Well, one is because the refinery has been delayed. It's taken some time to take off. There's also the fact that the naira has depreciated pretty heavily against the dollar over a number of years, right? So if you think about what it has cost to set up this refinery, it's substantial. I remember when there was a distillation unit, a fuel distillation unit that was imported that made the news in 2019. I mean, this piece of equipment it looked like Godzilla. It was huge. So it just gives you the scale of what is being spent to put this refinery together. So you think about the expenses in dollar terms, dollar liabilities rising. And then there's, of course, the NNPC and the quick approval of a over $2 billion equity stake in the refinery, which wasn't announced years ago before, in the early days when the announcement was made. It was just announced this year. And then about a week or 2 weeks later, the Federal Executive Council then approved it. While the NNPC already has approved $1.5 billion for the Port Harcourt refinery and then $1.4 billion for Warri and Kaduna. So the speed with which that took place, there were people, rumors that coming out that, it's a bailout for the refinery rather than an equity stake. But look, the word from the horse's mouth is that no, it is not, there's no debts, there's no such issues, and the refinery should come on stream either next year or 2023. Another debt story This one's more factual. From the International Development Association. The International Development Association is part of the World Bank Group. And they've put out their financial statements for full year 2021. I mean, their financial year ends in June, stating that, well, Nigeria is one of the top 10 most indebted nations to the International Development Association. Now, what they do, what the IDA does, part of the World Bank Group, it helps the world's poorest countries. It complements the IBRD, which is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, provides concessionary loans anywhere from 0% to low single digits over payment periods of 30 to 40 years, even gives moratoriums of up to 5 to 10 years. So it's mainly set up for concessionary loans to assist developing nations. So they released their financials. They were talking about country risk. Country risk, of course, is where a country might default on its obligations. Zambia, November 2020, defaulted on a Eurobond to the tune of $42 million or so. So country risks exist. And of course, the Zambian election, we'll see whether that still holds or not this year. So there's a chart showing the top 10 most indebted nations to the International Development Association. If you look at the chart, you'll see India is in the lead there, 22 billion, Bangladesh, 18 billion, Pakistan, 16 billion, Vietnam, there's Nigeria in 5th place, 11.7 billion, then Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Uganda. You can see the profile, the region of the world from where these countries come from with respect to assistance on the IDA. It should be noted, though, that the single borrower limit is $45 billion. Nigeria is well under that. And still, essentially, another thing. These countries, these top 10, make up 66% of the IDA's exposure to nations that are in need. But again, they are on a concessionary basis. We move to global youth development. The Commonwealth Secretariat, this is a triennial list that it releases. It didn't release it last year because of COVID, but this is their Global Youth Development Index for 2020. And if you take a look at the, Nigeria essentially ranks, I think, 161 out of 180 countries. Look at the top 10, Singapore, Slovenia, Norway, Malta, they lead the way. The rest, European countries pretty much dominates the top 10. You look at the bottom 10, Yemen, Mozambique, the Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger Republic, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Central African Republic, and then Nigeria in the middle. They made some key recommendations to develop the youth. Their recommendations are as thus: digital skills for the youth, mental health facilities, apprenticeships, road safety, and this final one, youth participation in decision-making that impacts them. And that's at the political level. Again, when you look at the This Day cover 2 days ago, where you talked about, yesterday, where you talked about the potential leaders for 2023, I don't think anybody was up to under 40 there. Everybody was in the 50s and 60s. So there's the last key point there: youth participation in decision making. And then finally, Egyptian billionaire Naguib Sawiris. He's in telecoms. He says he has advice for everyone. He says you should hold at least 25% of your investment portfolio in gold. Talked about this with Michael Wilson yesterday. Michael made an astute point that, well, yeah, you can preserve your wealth, but how do you increase it? And that's our African business update.
It makes a lot of sense, Rotus. What Naguib Sawiris said is in telecoms, owns one of the biggest telecoms company out of the Middle East called Rascom. Done quite well for himself because of the trend of the world, because of those inflation numbers. And the relationship between inflation and gold. And it's a scare everywhere. Price of things rising up, wealth is being creamed off as a result of this. Then there's no that big push in the economy. So it's the best time to put it in a safe treasury. And gold has always been a safe treasury over the years. Let's not forget that the currency of the world used to be pegged to gold. We had something called the gold standard until Nixon, abolished that gold standard. Most currencies were pegged to gold anyway before now, and that was the resolution after, the Second World War. And they had those great meetings in Bretton Woods in New Hampshire in America. So, great insight there. But let me come to development index. It is there, and it has come home to roost. Primary school completion rate very low in this country. Formerly, it used to be over 50%. Now, I hear it's inching towards 45, 50%. So less than 5 in 10 people that go to primary school don't complete primary school. Unemployment rate is high. Youth unemployment rate, it's at a great verge. Unemployment and underemployment, those numbers are going close to 60% in this country, Rotus. You can't push that fact away. let's also look at, development index, very, very low in this part of the world. Let's also push further. Misery index, very high. So it's a recipe for chaos and disaster. The fact that all of these things are not working. A lot of Nigerian young people between the age of 18 to 35 don't have jobs to do. That's another sad part of it. And when you look at it a little bit further, look at the inflation rate. Increased inflation rates, double the target of the CBN. And you know what that means? A lot of money is coming out of the pocket. The cost of getting food has increased. Households now spend close to 60% of their income on food alone. So to get food is harder. Young people can't grow. They can't get jobs. All of this culminates into the big problem we have. But what are the solutions? Digital literacy skills. Every country in the world is spending on digital literacy. The bulk of the money that Americans are getting now, they are creating new jobs that you can get only when you earn digital literacy skills. That's the way forward. We should have a mass exercise to be able to train people in digital literacy skills, because that's the way forward. Their mental health too is of importance. And real quickly, when you look at the possibilities that abound, you need to create job one way or the other, and you need to reflect this economy. It needs to create job and work for the young people. One,
I'd like to comment on this. First, the point you raised about the Dangote story, I think the clarification by AMCON is very important, because we're in the age of fake news. A lot of false and malicious information going about. That Dangote Refinery is something that many Nigerians have celebrated as a possible relief when it begins to dish out about 50,000 barrels per day. But then you now have, out of the blues, a story that there is debt and all of that. And I'd like to say that it is important that AMCON has come forward to say that it has no problem with the Dangote Refinery, and that the Dangote Refinery is not indebted to it in any particular way. We're all looking forward to the completion of that project and how it can impact on the fuel supply situation and the fuel price situation in Nigeria in terms of local production. That is that about that. Now, as for indebtedness to the IDA, Nigeria owing about 11.7 billion concessionary loans, the issue is not about debt, and that's the position of the Debt Management Office. The issue, as the experts have also pointed out, is what do you do with the debt? What do you do with the loans, whether they are concessionary or whatever? Nigerian people would like to see the impact of these loans that are taken on their behalf in terms of productivity, in terms of efficiency in the system, in terms of input and output. It is that disconnect between input and output that constitutes a major problem. As for education, Nigeria rated youth development 161 out of 181. I think that's a tragedy, because the biggest asset that Nigeria has, even beyond oil, even beyond agriculture, is the talent of its people. After all, last year we were celebrating Nigerian diamonds. And the key area, for me, all that talk about digital skills and mental health and all that, is education. What are we doing about education in this country? To be able to create a force, a strong force of young Nigerians, a population that is dominated by young people, to ensure that these young people have the relevant competitive skills. Digital skills, yes, that's the fashion, but maybe skills also in the humanities, skills in the sciences, overall comprehensive youth empowerment to ensure that Nigeria will be able to compete in the future. Yesterday, we had a story about the deplorable condition of accommodation in Nigerian universities. Not just one, because the example that was cited represents other examples across the country. Now, all this energy, youth energy that we have, we must convert it into energy, into productivity, into efficiency, into genius. We just went to Tokyo Olympics, and we went there, talented people, but because of our own circumstances and failures at home, we didn't allow those young people to shine to the fullness of their potential. That's the major challenge that faces Nigeria if Nigeria must compete in the future, a future that proves to be more competitive globally.
All right, thank you so much, Rotus. Really appreciate you, my friend. We'll move on to more business update now. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Michael, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Never mind gold. What you should be buying, of course, this morning is bulldozers, because what's happened is the infrastructure bill's actually been passed in the United States. Now, that isn't to say it doesn't. There won't be a fairly complicated route through the House of Representatives, but the Senate has passed it, which is actually doing quite well. Most notable was the intention to tax cryptocurrency transactions, raising £28 billion a year. I think that's going to be quite important. The other thing is, within all that, if we noted this yesterday, no debt level limits, and also no tax rises. But this still has to go through the House of Representatives. So very much a mixed picture then as far as the Asia-Pacific markets are concerned, waiting for the all-important US inflation figures, which come out around about lunchtime today. Rotus and I will be talking about those, no doubt, later on. Mainland stocks in China up slightly as its most indebted property developer, Evergrande, and some of its units actually soared. Oil stocks doing quite well. Again, I'll come on to that. Shanghai Composite up. Now let's talk about Xiaomi, which is the second largest smartphone maker in the world. It wants to be the absolute top spot. That's its ambition right now. It's overtaken Apple, and it wants to get up to where Samsung is. We talked about Samsung yesterday. China also in the news this morning. A gaming giant called NetEase pushing for major overseas growth. It's starting its new, now I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly because I'm not a gaming person, but it's Narake Blade Point, which is a 60-player action battle royale style game. There you have, you know about these things, that probably means something. Anyway, that's going to put revenue up 10% with that particular company. Singapore has raised its economic forecast, expecting growth between 6 and 7%. The economy in Singapore has grown 14.7% in the second quarter of 2021 from a year ago. So let's recap Wall Street, and stocks obviously rising there. I say obviously because they seem to get a new record every day, particularly on the Senate passing the infrastructure plan. Again, it's got to go through the House of Representatives. Don't get too excited, but it's expected to give the economy a boost, and it's trying to set Joe Biden really as being the new JFK. He must be very pleased so far about the administrative progress of this. Stock futures relatively flat, basically. And as I said, so therefore, the real biggie today is US inflation. Now, here's the thing for you to consider. We saw production figures in the United States, productivity figures, actually slightly disappoint. I'm not disappointed by that, but you may well be. What it might point towards is higher inflation, because productivity, I know it's very complicated, but the bottom line about productivity is how do you get more work out of workers without creating inflation? That's slightly slipping away in the United States. So it's maybe the more inflationary pressures there. Internationally, hackers have staged what could be the largest crypto heist in history, £433 million worth. It's come off the blockchain site, which is called Poly Network, and they've exploited, guess, of course they have, a vulnerability in the system. No surprise there. So the good people at that particular company have written to them, open letter on Twitter, saying the amount of money you've hacked is one of the biggest decentralized, in decentralized money history. Law enforcement in any country will regard this as a major economic crime, and you will be pursued. Good luck with that. Global containers. You've often talked on this program about the problem with Nigeria ports. It's right throughout the world. 353 container ships throughout the world are stuck outside ports waiting to come in. I don't know what the wait's like in Nigeria, but as far as Los Angeles and Long Beach are concerned, in the United States, a wait up to 12 days before those deliveries can actually happen. And this is nothing to do with the Suez Canal. This is all to do with lack of investment in infrastructure, traffic jams, and all the rest of it that you're very, very familiar with. I'll bring you back to the UK. One major story this morning. This is JetBlue basically launching New York to UK flights despite the pandemic. Now, what this is on the back of is quite extraordinary news, really, that hotels in this country and around the world are are experiencing a strong rate of demand. The global travel industry is starting again. Intercontinental hotels in this country has opened 132 hotels in January and acquired another 203. So that's on the up. As far as commodities are concerned, finally, energy stocks gaining. Higher oil prices are pushing up energy stocks. So you'll be looking at things like Santos, Beach Energy, Oil Search, Petrochime and CNOOC, and gold is steady until we get those US inflation figures, of course.
And let me talk about those numbers. So Joe Biden did pass his $1 trillion, budget for infrastructure yesterday, and there was an opinion poll conducted among Democrats, and I mean Democrats this time around. And one of their greatest fears is inflation. So, Michael, this has been one of the biggest arguments for inflation thus far. That is not transitory. It is here to stay, and something has to be done about it. And when that 3.5 trillion also kicks in, inflation numbers are going to go up. What's your say? What do you say about all of this? If the Democrats themselves are afraid of inflation in America?
I'll wait to see what the inflation figures are, quite honestly, in the United States. What the Democrats think is immaterial. What we want to be looking at is what the markets actually think, and what will they say after the inflation figures come out this lunchtime. Now, if they are within a certain level, then the markets will react against it, because the worries about inflation not being transitory but being underlying and quickly will actually hit the markets quite hard. If that's not the case, then it won't. So really, what politicians think about this is completely immaterial. It's down to the markets, and the markets will make their decision when we get those figures at 1:30 our time today, and I'll be talking about that with Reuters. So yes, I mean, right, as we always do to express concerns about inflation, the question is when and how much, and we do not know the answer to that yet.
Well, Michael, I think the bigger issue with the infrastructure bill that was passed by the Senate has to do with President Biden saying that this is a triumph for bipartisanship in the Senate, in Congress. Do you think that we'll find that kind of bipartisanship when the matter goes to the House of Representatives, considering the fact that there are certain clauses that will still have to be considered at the level of the House of Representatives? Is President Biden celebrating too soon? And are we likely to see the bipartisanship that he sees as some kind of sustainable feature in the U.S. Congress? I know you don't like to talk about politics, but what do you think about Governor Andrew Cuomo resigning yesterday against his own previous statements and against expectations? What next for him? Will he run again in 2022? And is this likely to have any significant implications with regard to New York economy?
Okay, Andrew Cuomo, it's not that I don't like to talk about politics. I don't know anything about it. So, I mean, my guess is as good as yours. As a leading politician, if I were one and any doubt like that were to come up, of course I would resign, because it's the honourable thing to do. And also it dispels any doubt about things. I really don't know. I cannot answer your question about Andrew Cuomo. I've got no idea what he's going to do. He'll probably get taken on by some big corporate board, probably a big tech company, and act as a consultant. That's what tends to happen to politicians when their political life finishes. I've got no idea. As far as Biden and bipartisanship is concerned, well, it may be that. I mean, I think that, I'm not in favour of groupthink, and I think bipartisanship is about groupthink. I like challenges to ideas, because I think that's how great ideas become great practicalities. I think that what we did see yesterday, if it helps the argument, and again, I don't know what the progress of it's going to be like through the House of Representatives, it may be that this but it's clear that the sort of shadow of Trump has actually receded from the thoughts of the Republican Party. I think that's very important indeed, because a lot of the Republicans were warned in no uncertain terms by Trump, do not vote for this, and they did. So therefore it means that they are, good heavens, they're beginning to think for themselves. How extraordinary is that, as far as politicians are concerned?
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson.
We'll go straight to Adesso Amara. Adesso, as always, thank you for the great job you do. Everything on COVID. Thank
you so much, Rafai. Let's take a look at the global figures this moment. According to the Johns Hopkins University tally, Over 204 million infections have been reported. Unfortunately, over 4.3 million people have lost their lives to the virus. Global vaccine inequity remains largely unchanged. However, over 4.4 billion doses have been administered globally. The WHO wants every country to have vaccinated at least 10% of its population by the end of September this year, and at least 40% by the end of the year, and 70% by the middle of next year. That still remains a huge task for the world to achieve. Here in Nigeria, Lagos, Rivers, and Akwa Ibom states posted most of the new infections in the last 24 hours, as the country recorded 610 new infections and 2 COVID-19 related deaths. Lagos, the epicenter of the pandemic, continues to record high COVID infections and deaths. Meanwhile, Nigeria's fight against the virus through vaccination continues to receive boost, as the country is expected to receive 176,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines today. The executive director of the NPHCDA, the primary agency responsible for vaccination across Nigeria, Dr. Faiza Schweib, said this would be the first tranche of the over 29 million doses procured from the Afrexim Bank through the African Union. He also confirmed that the second phase of vaccination will resume on the 16th, while debunking reports in some quarters that the delay was due to documentations. The government is again warning against mixing vaccines in Nigeria. It says people should wait for the doses of the vaccine type they have received. For instance, if you receive the AstraZeneca, please wait for the second dose of an AstraZeneca vaccine, as they are set to arrive any moment from now to the country. Let's go to Kenya quickly, where public servants have until 23rd of this month to get vaccinated against COVID-19, or they will face disciplinary action. In a memo, the head of public service, Joseph Kinyua, notes that the delivery of public service in the country had been hampered due to some public servants not accepting the jab. In the last 24 hours, Kenya reported 1,183 positive cases and 32 deaths. In Germany, we are also seeing mandatory measures. The 16 states and federal government in Germany have agreed to end free coronavirus testing to incentivize people to get vaccinated. From October, COVID-19 tests or proof of vaccination or recovery will be required to access facilities including restaurants, cinemas, and gyms. And those who refuse to get jabbed will have to pay to prove that they are infection-free or risk being shut out of those places. But there are some people who are exempt from these measures in Germany: pregnant women, children, and those who have been advised against getting a vaccine on medical grounds. They don't have to pay for the test. And finally, the government of Bangladesh and aid agencies have started vaccinating Rohingya refugees against coronavirus, as a surge in cases raises health concerns in cramped camps where more than 1 million people who fled Myanmar are sheltering. Bangladesh is witnessing an infection surge driven by the highly transmissible Delta variant.
Well, let's start with Bangladesh. In Bangladesh having in a place called Kosvak in the southern region of Bangladesh, basically mostly about 1 million Rohingya Muslims who fled Myanmar since 2018, when the Myanmar Buddhist-dominated authorities decided to descend on the Muslim majority in that country. And then many of them fled to countries within Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Thailand, and other countries within that axis, even all the way to India. Now, the Rohingya Muslims, they have a special problem. They are not considered citizens. They are considered stateless. They are not accepted in Myanmar. The international community, they waded into the crisis in the Rakhine state, because these are persons who say they are part of the kingdom, the Arakan kingdom, and they've not been accepted by the Buddhist authorities of Myanmar, creating a special problem for the international community. So the about 1 million people that went to, across the border to Bangladesh in the southern region, they've been having very, very special problems, both from nature and from the circumstances in which they have found themselves. They are all cramped together in 34 camps in that part of the country. Recently, there was also flood, a landslide, affecting them. Poverty, statelessness, institutionalized discrimination on the part of the Myanmar authorities. The position of the international community is that nobody, no human being, should be treated in such manner. Now, the latest is that in those cramped camps, over 1 million of them, they are suffering from the spread of COVID-19 and particularly of the Delta variant. I think we should commend the Bangladeshi authorities for making the effort to ensure that the immunization process will now be taken to them. Bangladesh has also nationally been trying to deal with the crisis of COVID-19 and the Delta variant. Even if it's not managing it well, but at least paying attention to the Rohingya Muslims is an important issue from an international perspective. Now, as for Nigeria, yes, Dr. Faisal Shaib, in a 15-paragraph speech yesterday, I don't know why they write all these lengthy things if they want to communicate with Nigerians, but there are certain basic takeaways. One, in paragraph 15, it talks about people still facing the applying the non-pharmaceutical measures. Now, in another paragraph, it says Nigeria is going to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, about 3.9 million doses, but that by this week, tomorrow, in fact, that about 176,000 will arrive, and that's one dose. Now, this is the first time we are being told officially that Nigeria has purchased vaccines, because we have continued to raise questions about whether Nigeria is purchasing or not, or relying on donations. We have also been told that the track and trace that Professor Adegeye talked about yesterday is what is responsible for the delay in the application administration of the Moderna vaccine. Yes. We are also told in that speech that people should not mix and match. If you took AstraZeneca, stay with it. And we've been told that more doses of AstraZeneca will arrive. So effectively in Nigeria now, we're going to have the AstraZeneca, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson. But the Johnson & Johnson, which is one dose, is going to be reserved for rather inaccessible parts of the country, the riverine areas, the creeks, and all of that. So I think the information that was offered is very useful. In one paragraph, he appealed to the media not to misinform Nigerians. Because he said, yes, the media is very important in this matter. And in that regard, he was complaining about how certain media houses, not Arise News, have been misinforming the people. So it is good, but I think Faisal Shaib should go away with this, that the communication process, is very important. They themselves must not drop the ball at any time. It's not enough to blame media houses to say they are misinforming the people. What effort are they themselves making sure that information is put out there timeously? And then finally, in one of the paragraphs, I think paragraph 13, he made the point that those who have been vaccinated also have a responsibility, a duty to encourage people, vaccine skeptics, to take the vaccine. So, nice information. We'll leave it at that. We don't have time. We don't always have enough time to do comprehensive analysis.